Today it's time for a professional match of StarCraft 2. Spawning here in the southeast corner of Cairo's Junction and playing with the blue Zerg drones. We're looking inside of the main base of Bly. His opponent in the opposite corner playing with the red Protoss probes, we have none other than Goblin. So this is a game that was played a couple of weeks ago as part of the World Championship series. I'm excited to figure out what happens in this game. Obviously, I haven't yet seen it myself either. But the thing is, Goblin and Bly, let me just put it gently, okay? They like to play unorthodox styles. Goblin definitely more so nowadays than Bly. Bly, of course, back in the day especially, loved going for the super cheesy builds. He would cheese very, very regularly. And while we do see a spawning pool first right here, that's nothing too crazy. I think that's just a response of him playing against Goblin. Nowadays, though, Bly loves to play that macro game as well, but he still likes to play unorthodox. Goblin, though, he's one of those players who cheeses very, very regularly. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bly decides to go for the pool first. He might even be checking right here for... Nah. I was gonna say maybe he's checking for a cannon rush, but no, that's not the case. He's just trying to loop the drone around because he saw that probe was already making its way towards the Zerg side of the map, so he can go ahead and plant down the hatchery without any kind of trouble. But still, right? Since Goblin is known to play very cheesy, Bly is already making some adjustments in his style right here, and we'll have to see what this red Protoss wants to follow this up with. First probe, though, always going to be a little bit of a nuisance. 6 Zerglings will be constructed, so Bly at the very least is going to try and put on a little bit of pressure. He doesn't have 100 gas just yet, so he did end up getting a gas geyser there a little bit after starting up the spawning pool. So there's not a whole lot that Goblin can see here either. And there we go. The Zerglings are out, and that's going to be the end of the scouting information right now for our red Protoss player. Oh, and actually, ooh... I love this. Immediately, Bly does a Bly thing. Look at that. He starts a Burrow and a Roach Warren as well. I was going to say, he's saving up a little bit of gas. Does he want to go for like a Zergling speed? Okay, he's going to go for Burrow and he wants to go for a Roach Warren. Keep in mind, there's no link speed underway. And at this point, Goblin is completely in the dark. Cybernetics core is done, so we should see what kind of tech he wants to go for here in just a little bit. These Zerglings are mostly just buying time, but Goblin is not going to assume that there's going to be roaches on the other side of the map very, very soon. And definitely not roaches with Burrow, and that's actually a nice little surround right there as well. The actual probe there in the back, though, helping out quite a bit. And at the very least, Goblin is not going to allow these units to move in. With that Adapt finishing off, I think, or finishing up, I do think that Goblin is going to be fine for the time being. But the roaches are going to arrive here in just a little bit. And at this point, our red Protoss player does have absolutely no idea about the fact that roaches will soon be out and that Burrow will be done as well. Burrow was moved to hatchery tech a couple of years ago at this point, but honestly, it's one of the most underutilized upgrades in the game. So let's see what Bly can achieve right here. And honestly, even if you see that this is coming, right? So a Shade is going to move across right now. He actually does decide to cancel it there, but as soon as Goblin sees that there's going to be roaches out, he's not going to assume that they have Burrow, right? He's getting a robotics facility right now. I would highly, I would highly doubt him going immediately into an observer here. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, unless he doesn't see, obviously, that these roaches are coming. He might actually accidentally start up an observer first, but no. It is going to be that robotics facility chrono boosting out in Immortal. But here we go. The roaches are out. They do have Burrow, obviously. Shield battery is going to be very, very annoying. Bly at this point tries to brute force his way through. Obviously, he needs to make sure that the shield energy does get depleted out of the shield battery. But here we go. Bly is excellent at microing. So let's see when he finally shows the Burrow upgrade. He hasn't done so just yet. There we go. Now, finally, some of these units are making their way underground. This is still something you actually have to see. The Immortal right now is available as well, though, and those units absolutely plow through roaches really quickly. Now, the roaches, they do burrow quickly while they are burrowed like that. You can see their little health bars already moving up quite quickly. Bly dealing a bunch of damage. He's now actually droning behind and still getting Zergling speed. But here we go. The roaches once again decide to pop out of the ground. Observer is available right now. That one Immortal is the one that is supposed to hold the line. Probes are pulled off right now as well. That Immortal, though, picking up so many kills. And right now the roaches are on the retreating path. Wait a second. No way. Is one Immortal going to clean up like, what, 8 roaches? Guys. Yeah. Immortals are pretty good. I mean, they kind of live up to their name, I suppose. Look at that guy. He doesn't even care. Just walks around like a crab. Incredible work right there by that one Immortal. Now getting some of those shield restoration as well, and that is gonna allow him to hold this wall for a really long while. I always underestimate the amount of damage that Immortals can deal. I'm sure every Zerg player has had that once upon a time in their career. I've had it actually with Protoss as well. I'm like, huh, I'm kinda dead right now. I've only got 3 Immortals remaining and 1 Prism. Turns out 1 Prism and 3 Immortals can kill like 100 roaches, man. It's pretty insane, the amount of value you can get out of some Protoss units. That's always one of the things that I always get a little bit sad about with Zerg. I mean, with Burrow, I guess your army is a little bit more microable, but it's not in the same value, I guess. You can't get as much value out of a Zerg unit as you can, for example, get out of an Immortal, right? And especially once you get a Prism out. Speaking of which, Goblin is gonna switch to that right now. We see the Twilight Council getting itself the charge upgrade. This is actually a pretty tricky scenario. So Bly decided to drone up pretty greedily while that aggression was going on, right? He made a handful of roaches and then decided, okay, this is going to be the time where I'm going to drone up once again and start getting ahead economically. Now at this point, you have to figure out roughly how many units you want to make and how many drones you want to balance. So Bly actually right there was anticipating that maybe it could be a Dark Templar play, maybe it could even be a Stargate follow-up as well. Not the case this time around, so he cancels the Spores, but there's no lair, there's not really any upgrades, there's not going to be speed, not a lot of Queens either. He's getting some more of those right now, but this is a pretty tricky scenario. How many units is Protoss going to make? Are they going to go for a 3rd base? And how many drones do you want to balance with the amount of units that you create here as well? There's quite a lot of army here available. Now I love that that observer right there for our Protoss player. That's gonna spot exactly what Zerg is doing. Yeah, I think that this 3rd base is basically toast, right? I mean, that's a lot of Zealots with charge. They are far better upgraded. The Prism right now is here as well. 2 Immortals are dropped off, and that is gonna be the end of this 3rd hatchery. I mean, eventually the Roaches right there come in, and the Ravagers are trying their very best. Queen's ready to intercept the Prism as well, but Goblin a little bit too good for that. He is not gonna just simply fly into that Queen group, as he will be able to, I guess, pick up a couple more of those creep tumors. Always nice to have. All right, so who is truly ahead right now, right? This is an awkward scenario to be in. This is a low eco Zerg. Normally, we don't see Zerg going up towards a lair on 2 bases and, you know, then finally take a 3rd. That's pretty uncommon nowadays. I mean, we see that, I guess we saw it quite a bit over the last couple of months with the Nidus Worm shenanigans, right? We saw that quite a bit, but, you know, in a macro game, in this scenario, I highly doubt that Bly, well, he could still go for a Nidus Worm, but I don't think this was really what he was anticipating, right? Now, all of a sudden, even though Zerg is fine economically, now all of a sudden, Zerg is playing 2 base versus 2 base, and I think that's kind of where Protoss has the upper hand. Goblin, though, what is his next step? So he's got 2 real options, I think. Either he could try and take a 3rd base and tack up, or he could go for an all-out assault on the 2 bases that he's got. Go up to maybe 8 gateways and just go with an all-out assault. That is exactly what Bly is trying to figure out right now as well. He's got a couple of those burrowed Zerglings on all of the most likely to expand to locations. I guess they also spot little Zealot run-bys like this. Spire is coming up right now, but that is a Spire that's being built into a double Stargate transition here from Goblin. So both players are trying to outsmart each other right now. They know that it's very uncommon. I mean, Goblin knows that it's very uncommon to right now transition towards double Stargate. Not something you would do after charge play. Prism's still out as well. I think actually the response right here for the Spire for Zerg. Ooh, it's raining biles. And it's, yeah, the Prism is good. Are you kidding me right now? Wow. Saved by the Roaches there primarily, because the Queens couldn't make their way through it very easily. Anyways, that is a very, very dicey scenario. But I think maybe the reason why the Spire was planted down there, he actually canceled it and then started it up once again. Maybe he didn't want the Protoss player to see. But I think the main reason right there is to try and catch Protoss off guard, snipe the Prism, fly across the map. A couple of Zealot though were once again forced towards the top right-hand corner, and Zerglings also tried to pick off the 3rd base here for Protoss. All right. So Phoenixes are indeed the name of the game. Now, the thing is, if you want to go for a sneaky muta transition, right? And you think you're outsmarting your opponent, and you like quickly build a bunch of them, and then immediately... Is this spotted, by the way? No, it's not. Oh my god. But you make a clump of mutas, and you think you're being really sneaky, and then you try and head into the into the main base of Protoss and you find about 1,000 of those Phoenixes, you're in a terrible spot because Phoenixes essentially are the counter to Mutalisk play right now as well. We'll see what Bly decides to do here with that Spire now that he sees that it is going to be that double Stargate opener. He does keep it up for now. I know that some Zerg players like to play like Corruptors. That would be a very Bly-esque thing to do, I suppose, but this is a very dicey scenario already. Notice there's no spellcasters here at all for Goblin. He's not going to have any sentries. There's no splash damage in his army either. So the longer that this fight goes on, right, the better this Roach Ravager army will become as well. It's just that the Phoenix army is going to be a bit of an awkward one as well. We see now the transition towards the Fleet Beacon. And actually, I think he's trying to outsmart his opponent once again with another one of those, another one of those mind games. We see a couple of Phoenixes here, but he doesn't want to make too many of them. I think maybe the Phoenixes would have been a response as well to the hypothetical scenario of Zerg going for... Dude, they're basically playing 3D chess, is what I'm trying to say, okay? They're trying very hard to outsmart each other. Maybe he knew that Bly likes to go for the Spire here, so he decided to go for the double Stargate, which honestly at this point hasn't really, like, paid for itself just yet. But I think if he manages to get, like, an upgrade out pretty quickly, he's gonna be in a decent spot with these carriers. Now, if there's one thing true about carriers, right? It takes about 7.5 years to build them and to get a decent amount of them out as well. Bly is gonna try and counter the carriers right now that he doesn't know, by the way, that are coming up. He doesn't know about the Fleet Beacon, if I'm not mistaken. Nah, he has no idea. He's trying to go for Swarm Hosts. Now, Swarm Hosts, technically speaking, can't shoot up, but they can pile on a lot of pressure and really steamroll and snowball the Zerg into an advantage. And that's the thing. On paper, carriers would always kill a Swarm Host-based army. In reality, though, this is one of those unit compositions that isn't really easily countered by Phoenixes here, and it takes a lot of carriers to really get some proper value. Now, I like this. You guys know I'm a big fan of the Phoenix. I think they're phenomenal. Picking up a lot of drones, maybe going after a couple of those Overlords as well, but right now he sees the Swarm Host and he knows he's going to be in a little bit of trouble. A couple of Swarm Hosts, though, already made their way across the map. No splash damage here for Goblin whatsoever, so that's going to cost him either a lot of Zealots or the Nexus itself. Carrier is out right now, but it's only a single one of them, and that's not going to achieve that much. Actually, it's going to be the Immortals that are going to be the flavor of the day, apparently, here for Zerg. That is an awful lot of Zealots, but still a bunch of Immortals in the back as well. The Phoenix is right now also swooping back in. I think that Bly may actually be in a bit of a dicey scenario. That is obviously a massive amount of Zerg supply, but the thing is, this is an extremely cost-inefficient Zerg supply as well. Prism, though, it is not over here. Looks like the base is still alive. So, Goblin is going to be able to hold here, but he did end up taking a lot of losses as well. Yeah, actually, ooh, look at that. Units lost-wise, I guess it is slightly in favor of Protoss, but that's not going to be too long if Bly starts mining off of 4 bases, right? The one pylon, though, or rather the one prism in the top right-hand corner here of the game, it does indeed, once again, warp in a couple of Zealots. That hatchery is awfully low, and there's really not much here to defend against this. Most of the Zerg army is currently on the other side of the map, so I think actually this hatchery might very well fall. That's rough. That's actually really quite painful. Big Locust Wave, though, trying to make its way across the map as well. They're going to try and go after a couple of these probes over here, maybe a couple Zealots as well. Hatchery does get picked off. A couple of probes, though, do get killed as well. And actually, ooh, you blink twice, and 10 probes fall. And in a scenario where you really thought that the Swarm Hosts were easily countered there already as well. Okay. So, let's step back, okay? Let's step back and look at this game from a bit of a larger perspective. Bly has gone for a unit composition that is very, very much so in your face and that is meant to close out this game quick. This supply count right here in the Swarm Host, the Roaches and whatnot, it is just not very efficient. If somehow, some way, Goblin gets up to the maxed out army, and that's gonna be rough with another one of those Locust Waves, this time around target firing down the Nexus, ugh, that's painful. But if somehow, some way, Goblin manages to max out, his army is gonna be vastly superior. It's just that Swarm Hosts seem to shine primarily when Protoss is hovering around, let's say, 110 to 140 or so supply. Right? If Protoss is hovering around that amount of supply, Swarm Hosts just deal so much damage. Once they get close to maxing out, all of a sudden, Swarm Hosts look like the most pathetic unit in the game. So there's this balancing act with these swarm hosts. Yes, you do want them out, and yes, you do want to have a bunch of them. They can be very, very helpful, but you don't actually want them available for too long. So I don't think actually Bly even minds losing a couple of them here. He kind of needs to like set some of that supply off into higher value units, like for example these corruptors. The corruptors are ultimately what he needs, and if he can snipe, for example, an Archon and then a couple of zealots, I think that's kind of the value that you're looking for right now with these swarm hosts. They have been worth their weight in gold already, they have been valuable, but right now, you know, it's time for the big boys to come out, for the big guns to really become available. Now, having a couple available obviously is never a bad thing, but in late game armies, generally speaking, they're just not worth the amount of supply that they take. And look at this Protoss army. This is a scary army, okay? This is a scary, scary army. Third Nexus has been reacquired. I wonder if Goblin maybe wants to go up towards a fourth one right now as well. The thing is, Bly is buying a lot of time. So he went up towards a hive. Greater Spire's coming up right now as well. And actually, he does have a pretty decent economy, but most of his drones right now seem to be spent on static defense as well. So he's getting an awful lot of static defense. The Corruptors actually decided to move across the map. There's a couple of Vipers there in the mix as well. He's going to use the caustic spray ability to piss on all of those Stargates. Sorry about that. But they're gone, okay? Look at them. Well, I guess they're technically puking, right? Well, okay, at least one of them is gone. The Vipers, though, they are very valuable here. But they're mostly just useful when it comes to abducting any of those carriers. Maybe Bly hoped that he would find some of those carriers flying inside of the main base, trying to reinforce. If you can pick them off for free, that's a big deal as well. But this has now turned into a bit of a chaotic game, as still a lot of that supply that Bly has is caught up in ground units. Now, ground units are fine and all, right? But they're not very good in the maxed out army. Look at this army composition of Goblin. It's very gas heavy, very immortal, Archon, Zealot, and then even Storm heavy. And then obviously a ton of carriers as well. Roaches just simply aren't going to cut it, and Swarmos aren't really going to cut it either. So he needs to kind of get aggressive, but just throwing these units away is also not really what you want to do. So we are transitioning right now towards an army composition for Zerg that is going to be a lot more sophisticated than what he's got right now. Once again, we see these pesky little drones burrowed on the ground. Goblin desperately trying to take himself another base as he needs the resources to continue building up his one-time Death Bowl army. Alright, 8 Brute Lords are going to be the name of the game. Brute Lords obviously have a lot of range. They can throw the little Brutelings from a very long distance, and they can easily pick up all of these Immortals, Archons, and then the Zealots and the High Templar. You know, they are the ones dedicated with countering that. I think it's going to be Vipers, Queens, Corruptors, and then a lot of Spore Crawlers, and then the leftover Swarm Host to try and deal with most of those air units. Well, not the Swarm Host, but the rest of it, though. They can all be great at picking up some of those units. The Abducts, though, they need to be on point. Abducts and feedback rather, from these High Templar are gonna be very, very critical. If you can feedback the Vipers, take them out of the equation, all of a sudden this Protoss army is way more terrifying. If somehow, some way, those storms can land as well in the Zerg army, that's gonna be terrifying as well. But if you can go ahead and abduct a couple of those juicy carriers, you find yourself in a wonderful position as well. The Swarm Hosts, they likely will be picked off here. The Brute Lords, though, from the high ground, dealing so much damage as well. Queens right now underneath, dealing some work as well. Great feedbacks there, and storms are coming up. The Corruptors, though, flying right on top of all of those. Oh my god. On top of all of those Archons, and you saw the splash damage, right? Did you notice how quick the hit points right there of those Corruptors fell? Luckily for Bly there, he noticed just barely in the nick of time, and actually it's going to be those Swarmos once again that get another one of those Locust waves off. Bly trying to reinforce this right now with more and more Corruptors. The Queens are still alive, but they are the main source of anti-air right now. Keep in mind, though, carriers nowadays take a very long time to rebuild their interceptors. It takes like 1,000,000 seconds for each of them, and considering they have to build 8, that's 8,000,000 seconds, okay, for them to... No, it takes a while. Regardless, it looks like this base will be picked off here, but I think that Goblin is going to have to spend a little bit of time moving back home again as well. Remember those Roaches and those Zerglings that he had? I think they were utilized at cleaning up the third base here of Protoss as well. I didn't really focus on that too much because the main army of Goblin is really what he's relying on right now. This is really what is going to sell and make or break this game. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough here. The main base is running out. Natural is running out as well. Goblin has got a one-size-beats-all kind of army, right? That's kind of what he's going for right now. He's like, okay, I'm going to make one scary army, and if I win with that, that's going to be great. But if I don't, I am gonna be in a world of hurt. And right now, he finds himself in a bit of an awkward scenario. He finds himself trying to recuperate and regenerate some of those losses and then regenerate some of that energy in those High Templar. So Bly has done a great job continuously denying the bases, right? And I love the fact this is something that Sero and Raynor and all of the top level Zergs like to do a lot. They send in a lot of Zerglings when Protoss is in a very slow moving ball, right? So they dedicate a part of their supply always having a group of Zerglings out as well. The thing is, I have lost many games against the Protoss army like this before. Yeah, Bly is giving this army a lot of respect. He's like, okay, you know what? You can try and expand again. I'll just pick all of them off. I just don't want you to get any bigger than you are right now. I don't want this army to grow any larger. Oh, the Corruptors. Waiting for the Abducts. The Queens obviously are gonna regenerate some of their energy as well. I feel like in the long run though, right? Bly is just simply mining more. Like, Bly is just simply mining more than his opponent, and that's gonna allow him to be in a better spot here. Main and Natural are running very low. Once again, one of those Bird Roaches picking up a lot of kills as well. 41 probes actually have gone down in this game so far, and I think more of them are gonna go down as well with a couple of those Zerglings now sneaking past the front door as well. This is gonna be the main base, mostly gone here for Goblin, who is still awkwardly out on the map trying to make a decision as to what he should go ahead and do. I think in most games, right, a player like Goblin would probably GG out at this point, but he still has a scary army, right? He knows, though, that he's likely gonna meet a massive wall of Zerg by the time that they do once again clash. I think if this were a normal ladder game, Goblin would probably commit it a little while already as well, but since this is a game that was part of the World Championship Series, he doesn't want to make any unnecessary risks. So we will likely see these armies clash one more time, one final time, before Goblin decides if this is a game that he wants to stay in or not. On paper, Bly should have all of the tools at his disposal to pull this one off, but these feedbacks, there you go. Beautiful move by Goblin. Takes those Vipers out of the fight, and that's actually a rather tricky scenario to be in. They're once again gonna have to be healed up. That costs the Queen energy. They have to once again get themselves some of that consume energy as well on those extractors apparently, to hopefully allow them to abduct once again. Base in the top right-hand corner, though, completely unscouted here by Protoss. Goblin is now forced to long-distance mine his old third base. And this now is really Goblin's fight to take. Bly is just simply saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to counterattack with Zerglings, so I'm not going to really allow you to take another base. You can come to me if you want to fight with the big armies. But just know that the longer you wait, my army is going to be stronger and bigger. Goblin realizes, though, the longer he waits, the more energy he's going to have on those High Templar and then also on these Oracles. He wants to try and fight this Zerg army when it is caught off guard, but I kind of feel like he's on a timer. I mean, third Nexus finally gets reacquired here. Both players, by the way, I don't think either really ever went up to like 60 workers. Did we actually either? I think maybe Bly may have gone up to like 65 or so, but it's very uncommon to go to these late game unit compositions off of such a low amount of economy, right? It's pretty sick. Bly, though, by the way, he doesn't have a big bank. Right, he does have a lot of Zerglings and whatnot, but these trades, I mean, they're decent, but he's losing quite a lot as well. Protoss' cost efficiency right now is really the name of the game, as he's still roaming the map, looking for the perfect engagement. Okay, all of the High Templar have joined up over here. We see a very scary amount of Zerglings trying their very best to deal some damage, and I think that might be the end of this third Nexus once again. Nah, maybe not, but still. Goblin has decided that this is gonna be his army. I don't think he really assumes he's gonna be able to get that much mining out of this at this point. Anyways, some of the creep will be cleared out. I gotta say, really want to compliment Bly right here for his patience as well. I think a lot of Zerg players would try and jump on the opportunity here, but Bly really does not want to face this Protoss army without those Spore Crawlers and those Queens. They can't really go off creep, obviously. I mean, he can put down more creep and maybe make the engagement a little bit easier, but if you have the high ground, you should probably keep it, okay? High grounds are very useful, guys. Come on. Watch a movie. You should figure that out very easily. Okay, well, I was just complimenting Bly's patience, but now it seems like he's roaming the map once more. Maybe he wants to try and fight that Nexus, use the caustic spray on that Nexus here as well. I don't really know if you want to do that. You don't really want to take this army for too long, but here we go. Bly. Ooh, I think he's finding himself a bit of an angle. Nope. Once again, decides to back off. Roaches, though, this time around are going to be the name of the game. He made quite a couple of those. They were sitting on the top of the ramp. Apparently, they are going to be the ones that will be sent over to watch that third Nexus of Protoss. And while there was a little bit of mining there for a little bit, it is going to be the recall on some of those air units that's going to try and force that army back. So after Goblin successfully roamed the map for a really long time, he now utilized recall, but only part of the army can be recalled as now the Zerg units swoop in. They go after as many of those carriers as possible. Storms are going down left and right. A lot of those storms, though, did blanket on top of those Corruptors, but Corruptors, they're beefy units. They have a lot of hit points, and while, of course, their armor upgrades and whatnot are not gonna be too useful, Bly finally sees an opportunity, engages the army when it is not in its ideal ball, right? When it's not in its ideal form, and that's when he finally wins the fight. I gotta say, though, the reason why Bly played so very patiently right there in the end is because Protoss armies with carrier storms and Archons, they are not to be underestimated. They can deal a ridiculous amount of damage, and you know, I think maybe he could have closed out the game a little bit earlier if he pushed the issue, but considering he never really had a lot of economy, right? I mean, at this point in the game, at the end of it, he had 40 workers mining only. He really could not easily reinforce this army either. I mean, this was his one-time army as well. He couldn't really remake it very quickly. So I think him playing super patiently right there was indeed the correct way to go. And while it may have been a little bit slow there near the end, I do think that that patience is one of the hardest skills to acquire in StarCraft. It took me a very long time to not just simply jump on the opportunity and wait for the Terran siege tanks to move on creep and not to fight off creep and all of that, right? It took me a really long time to try and get more patient, but I definitely am not even remotely as patient as Bly is right here. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit the like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your generosity. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile alright. And I will see you once again in the next one.